Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Andy, for inviting me. Thank you, Kath, for reading. Thank you, everybody else that did service. My name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you mostly to Alana, Connell, Kerry, the new people in the room. There might have been other people new, but they're the ones that I picked up on anyway. Andy, did you say there's somebody here with 30 years sobriety whenever you're calling it?
Yes, Kim is here with 36 years.
Well, congratulations, Kim. 36 years is a lifetime. My word. I remember whenever I first came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and hearing the guys that have been sober for decades and thinking, oh God, that sounds terrible. What an awful life to be sober for 30 odd years. I can think of nothing worse. It's funny how things change, isn't it? I also thought, though, that as a new person in the room, that there was no point in me engaging in dialogue with those who had decades of sobriety, that they would have nothing in common with me, that you should be speaking to people with a year maybe. And certainly that was true to some extent, but it was, whenever I started reaching out to everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous, I realized that I had something in common with them all. Those of us who are true alcoholics, that is, of course. And whether that's somebody with 36 years sobriety or 6 months sobriety or somebody who's still stinking of whiskey from what they drank the night before, they're all me. They're all the same as me. And I guess there's many things that I love about our fellowship, but what reminds me of what keeps us connected is really, really important. I've learned over the years that the real problem from which I suffer is the perception of separation from my fellow man and from God, whatever that means. Now, I don't know Kim, we've never met before, but I suspect if Kim was to take any alcohol into his system in any form, something would happen in both the bodily and mental sense that would make it virtually impossible for him to stop drinking. I imagine the same is the same for Alana on day 20. So isn't that a wonderful thing? My name is Brian and I'm an alcoholic. And everybody here has introduced themselves in a similar fashion. So immediately we're all just brought on to this level system. There's nothing hierarchical about it. Having said that, what I've also found is those with experience have a war chest of mistakes that they've made that I haven't made yet that I can tap into and learn from. So it's good to see you all here. To those who are new to this experience, because I guess that's my target audience today, isn't it? Well, welcome. And I'm sorry it hurts so much. I'm guessing it does. And if it doesn't, it might do at some point soon. And mine was not an experience where I put down the last drink, walked into a room hosting a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was hit by a beam of light and the obsession to drink alcohol was lifted and everything was fine from that point onwards. And I mean, no disrespect to those who had that experience. I'm just saying that I didn't. What I had is, like, I suffer from this great deal of reluctance to do anything that isn't by my own design. And I guess that comes from the misperception that doing things from the position of selfishness and self-centeredness is a method that's going to work out in a positive way. I believed that for a long time. And in our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, where, on the build up to step 3, it gives this example of an actor who's trying to run the whole show. And every time I read that, I think, like, I'm that guy. And it says that, is he not the victim of the delusion that he can wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if he only manages well, or better, I can't remember the exact wording, manages well. The delusion that he can rest, like that's rest with a W as in wrestle. So when will my life be okay? When will the pain stop? When will I find the sort of happiness and joy that I see in other people? Well, whenever I can just get the girl, or I can get the money, or get my kids through college, whenever this next monkey's off my back, then I will be entitled to feel some level of calm and bliss. Then I'll be entitled to peace of mind. In the meantime, the only reason why this crazy ass head with 1,000 voices in it is racing the way that it is because I haven't achieved my life's achievements. was part of the delusion from which I suffered. So whenever I'm or was going through life trying to achieve and re-achieve and fail and suffer and try again, whatever, but what I didn't realize is that running parallel to that, at the same time as this frenzied life that I was choosing, deep down within me, there was just this bliss, this massive reservoir of bliss whose symptoms are peace of mind that I didn't even really know was there. So whenever I come into these rooms, I went off on a bit of a strange journey before I ended up speaking to somebody who understood that. I went to meetings where whenever chapter 5 was read out, the first couple of pages of chapter 5, like you guys did at this meeting, but in those meetings, it was very, very confusing to me, because whenever it was asking me, you know, if I want what these guys have and I'm willing to go to any lengths for it, then I'm ready to take certain steps. And I'm looking around going, but I don't want what these people have. They seem to be really miserable, and they seem to be fighting alcohol one day at a time, and they come into these meetings to talk about how terrible their life is. I don't want that. Like, why on earth why would I find that attractive? And I don't know if you new guys are into that kind of thing, but I'm not. I don't want to go in and talk about whether, I don't know, somebody's tractor didn't work this morning, or whether, you know, my wife doesn't kiss me on the cheek when I leave the house. Does that mean she doesn't love me anymore? Whatever. All that should be talked about, I guess. But I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to come in here and find some people in whom the problem had been solved, who were willing to share with me how they reached the stage where they found recovery and how they recovered from alcoholism. Didn't want to meet with people who stayed in a place of perpetual misery for the rest of their days and were okay as long as they were able to fight it for 24 hours. That just sounded like a life sentence to me. So those are the guys I was hanging out with for a while until I decided to leave Alcoholics Anonymous, because obviously there was nothing on offer there for me. And then I met a guy who was at a meeting that he'd no business being at and just happened to be there for reasons that are yet obscure. And he spoke of something very, very different. He spoke of, well, first of all, he told me the truth. And that is that if I continued on the way I was going, I probably wasn't going to survive the next few months. And that alcohol was a fatal illness that gets progressively worse, never better. And he told me from his experience how he worked the 12 steps from the big book and how he found the process difficult and painful. But if given the level of commitment that it requires, i.e. with the same desperation of a drowning man, then I could recover from alcoholism and I could have a full life again as well. Now, that was something I was interested in. That's something that got my attention. Because up to that point, I could not stop drinking. Now, whenever I say I could not stop, I mean literally. My body had got to the stage where it was physically addicted to alcohol. So if I stopped drinking alcohol, I would go into cardiac arrest from the withdrawal of alcohol. Such was the frequency at which I drank. Now, that doesn't have to be the same for everyone. You know, there's some people who only drink at the weekend, but nonetheless, if they find whenever they start, they cannot stop, they still fall into the category of alcoholic as defined by the book Alcoholics Anonymous. But that was my experience. And I'd go and get a detox to be able to withdraw from alcohol, to be able to stop. The challenge that I then had was, how on earth do I stay stopped? And it wasn't going to be sitting around with a bunch of people who were dog miserable with their lives asking me if I want what they've got. That is what it was not going to be under any circumstances. And I don't go to meetings like that anymore. And I'm part of a group who welcomes newcomers in by telling them the truth, by impressing upon them the hopelessness of their condition, but offering them a way out. Now, I was invited to speak at a meeting. I can't remember when, but it was in lockdown. Do you remember lockdown? Do you remember that weird thing that happened a few years ago? What the hell was that about? Wasn't that nuts? Anyway, I suppose what came off the back of that is this facility, isn't it? But I was speaking at a meeting during that crazy time, and it was a newcomers meeting. And at the end, there was a guy who was there and he wanted to speak to me, I guess. I don't know, because you maybe heard something I said that was interesting. And he was asking for help because he was new and he was struggling. And I couldn't get to speak because somebody else kept interrupting me and saying things to him like, well, did you take a drink today? And the guy says, well, no, to which the host was replying, well, that means you're already winning. Don't worry about it. It's all going to be fine. And eventually I got to speak and I said to the guy, I don't know what to say other than that is bullshit. You know, if you didn't take a drink today, if you're like me, you have withdrawn from your life the only treatment for alcoholism, which is alcohol. So whenever the treatment from alcohol is removed from alcoholism, you're not winning. You're in a really, really dangerous position and you have to take action really, really quickly. And the action that we have to offer is the 12 steps as offered or as laid out in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is the only thing that's available from AA. Now, we have our fellowship. It's the best in the land. And I'm sure if I was to phone up Andy and say, listen, I'm in trouble, can you help me out? I'd look at his face. Of course he would help me. Isn't it amazing that we have that? And it's a wonderful thing. But the core thing that we have is the 12 steps. We are a 12-step fellowship. I heard somebody saying once the definition of insanity is joining a 12-step fellowship and not working the 12 steps. You know, it's so simple. Like, why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that? Imagine coming in here and saying, oh my God, I'm 4 months sober and I'm still struggling. Have you worked the 12 steps? No. Okay. What do you want me to say? You know, the only way to get recovery as offered from Alcoholics Anonymous is to do what it says in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a book. It looks a little bit like that. And the program starts in the title page and it goes right up to page 164 was my experience. You new guys, you know, you're weeks in, I'm presuming you already have a sponsor. If you haven't, why the hell not? Are you listening to somebody who's saying go to loads of meetings before you get a sponsor and you have to go to 90 meetings in 3 days or something? I don't know what that crappy rule is before you're entitled to a sponsor or some crap. That's all a load of balls. If it is that you're alcoholic and that you believe you're alcoholic and you've put down the drink and you want to find recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, you need a sponsor. And the best time to get a sponsor is yesterday. And if it's too late for yesterday, I guess today we'll have to do and we'll get you started. If you don't have a big book, give me your number. You know, I know people all around the world because of this facility. Give Andy a call. Look at him. He's bound to be able to want to help you out. You know, we'll get you a big book and we'll get you a sponsor and we'll get you working through this program. Let's just get it done. But as I say, I presume you've already done that. But if not, let's reach out and let's get you started. Because within that, I didn't know about this physical allergy thing. Did you guys know about it before you started working the AA program? Like, I knew whenever I started, I couldn't stop. But I thought that's just because I was a mental defect. Like, that's the only explanation I could find. I'm just a bit of a nutter. That's why whenever I start, I just can't stop. But whenever it was explained to me through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that there's something wrong with my body. Now, I've later looked up what it actually is, and there's a scientific explanation for that. And I'm not going to discuss that in this meeting because that would violate tradition 10. But it's there. There's a physical reaction within my body that whenever I take alcohol into my system, it's actually pouring an allergen on top of an allergy, which stimulates an allergic reaction, which makes it virtually impossible for me to stop. So those times whenever I went out to watch the first half of the football, and I mean proper football, not that crap you guys play, the first half of the football with the viewpoint of having 2 pints and then get back up the road again to my family, I would have passed a lie detector test that was in fact my intention. Like, I adore my family. And that was my intention. I was going to say every single time. I'm not really sure that's true. But most of the time, that was my intention. And very, very rarely was I able to do that. There's some times when I did. There's sometimes whenever I beat the allergy through grit and strength and willpower, whatever. But eventually, the alcoholism within me, this allergy will win out. And as it did. So that's fine. Look, it is what it is. You know, I know some people who are allergic to mushrooms, they just don't eat mushrooms. So why is it, if I can see from my own experience, even if I didn't know the cause of the allergy, I knew the effect, I knew that what happened whenever I started. So why is it that I just took the first drink again? Like why is that? Like, isn't the answer to that question the most important thing when figuring out how the hell one moves forward from this point? because I didn't come and see you guys. Like, you guys weren't my first choice. Don't get me wrong. I know you're charming and amazing, and let's face it, incredibly good looking. But I didn't know that then. I just thought you're a bunch of jackass losers at the back of a church hall. I don't know what could have said. What I thought, and I wanted to go and see people who had PhDs and give them money so they could fix me through medicine or whatever. So we did all that, and they couldn't fix me, right? But they told me about things like childhood trauma. That's what caused my alcoholism. Now, my supposed trauma as a childhood is no more exotic than anybody who grew up in the 1980s in Belfast, which was going through a bit of a civil war at the time. But nonetheless, it was explained that perhaps that's maybe why I drink like I do. But the guys I went to school with at the same time are not alcoholic. I remember thinking, there's a flaw to that argument. What does Alcoholics Anonymous say as to why I drink? Well, on page Roman numerals 28, yes, XXVIII 28, the bottom it says, men and women drink essentially because of the like effect produced by alcohol. There you go. Years and thousands of pounds worth of psychological treatment to figure out why I drink. Do you know what? I'm not that interesting. I'm not that complicated. I'm nowhere near as sophisticated within my mind as I perhaps thought it was. I drink because I like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while admitted is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. So after a while, it seemed the only normal life. What do you mean quit drinking? Like, what am I going to do then? To them, their alcoholic life seemed the only normal one. They're restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. It's the only normal life. So I'm sober for, I've gone weeks and went a few months at one point, and I feel healthier for a while, and it's really cool. And then after a while, I'm like, it's all a bit dull. Like it isn't normal being sober. And then I feel a little bit restless. And then I want the sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. Now, it doesn't say here that they want the sense of ease, the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by getting absolutely paralytic, thrown up on their neighbor, and falling asleep on the doorstep. It doesn't say that. And I never, ever, ever once wanted to do that. Now, I went out with a viewpoint of getting hammered a few times, but not to the extent that I did. Not to the extent where I would then rely on other chemical substances to keep me going, and then turn it into a 3-day bender and, put my marriage at risk and lose contact with my children whenever I'm supposed to be supervised. Like, I never that wasn't the sense of ease and comfort that I was wanting. I wanted the sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks, and that defines that as drinks which they see others taking with impunity. Now, my brother likes a few drinks, and he's really good at it. He can go out and have 10 pints and a few whiskies and just say, I feel really drunk, I'm going to go home. And I used to look at him and think, there's something not right with him. Where did he go wrong? But he's able to moderate, he's able to control, he's able to decide how much he takes into his body. Now, that's quite a large amount of alcohol, but that's his choice. And he takes that amount of alcohol with impunity. The next day, he has some fried food and a couple of aspirins and goes about his day. The next day, I'm either scurrying around trying to get more drink or trying to figure out how I'm going to get through the day without committing suicide. And then I'm looking at the stack of problems that I caused the night before, thinking, how am I going to get out of it? It's a different experience. It's a completely different experience. But a guy like me wanted the sense and ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. But then what happens? After they succumb to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomena of craving develops, so this allergy that makes me keep going, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution never to drink again. Wake up the next day going, oh, my God, I'm not doing that again. That was terrible. You know, the feeling of checking your text messages and going, oh, God, I'll maybe just have a couple to take the edge off, though. I'm never doing that again, but I'll have a couple just to take the edge off. is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope of his recovery. So new people, if you want the truth, there's the truth. If that's the life you're living, you're screwed. There's very little hope of your recovery. If you just keep doing it again and again and again, this time it's going to be okay. Do you know what? It was just a big hangover last week. I was being melodramatic. I don't need to quit. I just want the sense and ease and comfort that comes from taking a few. I'll be okay this time. Hammered all night long, wake up the next morning, not doing that again. Oh, I might just have one or two to take the edge off, and repeat and repeat and repeat. If that's the kind of drunk that you are, the type that I was, that's not good. This is not good news. It's terrible news. An alcoholic of that type is in the grip of a progressive illness. And if the story ended there, it would be a very dark story. But it doesn't, because it goes on to say, on the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, so certainly me at the time, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, and the new guys around, I'm guessing you got lots of problems because I'm yet to meet one who doesn't, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. Like, that's incredible news. Incredible news. To go from somebody of that type is screwed. There's very little hope of their recovery. And then the next paragraph, it says, having said that, if you do what it says to do in this program and have a complete psychic change, and let's not get too complicated about what a complete psychic change means, but in this book, it defines it as a personality change sufficient to overcome alcoholism. So the product of the 12 steps, in other words. If you do what it says in the book Alcoholics Anonymous and follow it with the assistance and guidance of a sponsor, and a sponsor isn't a guy wearing a captain's hat with 3 stripes on his arms, it's just somebody who's done it before. Somebody who's done it before is able to show his or her experience of how they followed the experience of a bunch of guys in the 1930s from a book, following it meticulously, word for word, line for line, paragraph by paragraph, and page by page, until ultimately this change happens. And the product of that being is that he will find himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. I find it easy to not drink alcohol. I don't know what is you're only an arm's length away from your next drink thing. I don't know what any of that is. I don't fight alcohol. I haven't fought alcohol for years. You know, new guys, I'm going to skip to what it says on the build up to step 10. So that's, you know, you recover at step 9. And then the rest of it's about staying that way. And the condition that I would find myself in was predicted if you'd have read ahead. And on page 84, it says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. Cease fighting alcohol. Now, if my sponsor said to me at the time, the only thing that we can offer you is that you will cease fighting alcohol at the end of this, I would have said, sign. Now, of course, there was much more. But the reason why I was here is because I needed to stop drinking. For this time, sanity will have returned. Now, I find that interesting because those of you who know me will know that I'm not necessarily sane in respect to all matters in life. I'm still a bit of a nutter. But what are we talking about here whenever it says sanity will have returned? Well, the book defines insanity as lack of the proportion of the ability to think straight. Lack of the proportion of the ability to think straight in respect to alcohol. And it talks about these 2 parallel lines running side by side. You know, one of them saying, if you drink again, you won't be able to stop. Then the wife's going to go and the job's going to go and the kids are not going to want to spend any time with you, and you're going to end up in a funny farm. That's one parallel line. And the other parallel line says something dumbass like, well, as long as you eat 2 BLTs and you mix your whiskey with a glass of milk, you'll be okay. You know, these 2 parallel lines, one which is perfectly logical, sane, and reasonable. The other one, which is an insanely trivial excuse to give up your whole life. And the insanity from which I suffered would allow the latter to win. Eventually. The sound reasoning holds it together for quite a while. But eventually the insanely trivial excuse will win over. And that's the insanity that I needed to get rid of. And that's the insanity that the 12 steps was able to find, to offer me a treatment for. For by this time, page 84, sanity will have returned. I don't lack the proportion of the ability to think straight in terms of alcohol. I don't struggle with that ever. It says, we will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. I was in a bar restaurant quite recently, and this waitress walked past with a tray on which there was a large glass of claret, those really big glasses, real airy glasses. And this waft of this red wine just hit me in the nose. And I remember thinking, oh man, that smells good. Do you know why I thought it smelled good, Andy? Because it smelled good. That was it. It was a nice smell. My thoughts were not followed with, so therefore I shall buy a glass and consume that, and it's going to be okay this time. It was a nice smell. That was it. There was nothing more to it. We react sanely and normally. That was a sane and normal reaction. And we find that this has happened automatically. So I didn't go, oh my God, I better say a prayer, phone my sponsor because I smelled some red wine. It just happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. I put no thought or no effort into reacting sanely around alcohol. That's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, says it again. Neither are we avoiding temptation. I don't know what a trigger is. I have no idea what a trigger is. I go to bars all the time. Well, not all the time. I also do other things with my life. But if I want to go to a bar, I'll go to a bar. I will just throw a quick caveat in here for the new people who are around. Until I got into my 9th step, I preferred to avoid places like that because it was still very vulnerable. I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I have no opinion on that. But what I'm saying is that step 10, when recovered from alcoholism, I don't avoid anything. I could work as a bartender should I choose. And I would find it easy to not drink alcohol, just like this book promises. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. It's not nice. We had not even sworn off and said the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. Now, it goes on to say that that's subject to continuing to work the program, though. I don't just get up to step 9 and make a handful of amends and get the buzz that comes from the 12 steps and think, that's okay, I don't need to fight anymore. I don't fight. But a guy was up before everybody else this morning. I'm up before everybody else most mornings because I take my 11th step on awakening process very, very seriously. I heavily commit to that. Throughout the course of the day, I look out for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When they crop up, not if, but when they crop up, there's a procedure in the previous paragraph in page 84 that tells me how to address that in order to stay spiritually fit. In the evening, I do inventory. When we retire at night, inventory from the book Alcoholics Anonymous on page 86. I don't miss a beat with these things. I am actively engaged in sponsoring other people. I don't know many people that sponsor. There's loads of them. So much of my time is given to the sponsoring of other people. The reason why I'm saying that is not for to say I'm a great fella, is I'm trying to offer the balance between the 2 points that I'm making here. Is that the product of the 12 steps is that you don't fight alcohol one day at a time. It's not what it is. If somebody else sees it that way, I respect that. It's fine. But I don't. I can't see that written anywhere. It talks about it being easy. But the counterbalance to that point is that is on the understanding that you continue to work the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. There isn't a finish line after which is some kind of a fait accompli and the cure has been administered. I continue to do this every day. I seek spiritual guidance one day at a time. I live my life one day at a time. I tap into the power deep down within me that I'm able to identify as God. More than one day at a time. My goodness, it must be several dozen times already within this day, and it's not even 5 o'clock. I commit to being of service within an AA group. And I socialize with alcoholics who have recovered, and I sit within all 3 legacies of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I don't know. I guess that, to the new guys, I don't know what it is that you want. I can't presume, I suppose, but I can only presume that you want to get the drinking monkey off your back and start rebuilding your life, and start having people back in your life again that you love. And I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if you're going to get your wife or your husband back. I don't know if the relationship with your children is going to improve, whatever. All I can tell you is all those things happened for me. All of them happened. My ability to function to the level that I needed to function within my career happened. You know, in the book, it talks about at one point that we would lose this fear around financial insecurity. And someone has said to me, well, that doesn't mean you'll become financially secure. It means that your fear of not being financially secure will go. Well, I don't know. I became financially secure. I don't lean towards the watered down version of the very abundant promises within this book. This book says you're going to sort your money shit out. You know, you're going to sort your relationship out, which may not be the way that you want it to. It may not be that he or she stays. It may well be that they go. But what I find is that within me, I was able to find the strength to be okay either way. And that I became less dependent on these outcomes, that I stopped trying to wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world by managing well. Because the thing is, whenever I'm doing that, I'm looking at me, not in a healthy way, but I'm looking from my eyes to the outside world and watching what you're doing to get in the way of my progress, and what you're doing to stop me from being what I want to be. Whenever what I should be doing and what I've learned to do from this program is to condition my mind to look at you through the lens of how can I be of service to you? What can I do to make your life better? Is there any way that I can just put me to one side in order to offer a service to somebody else? And we have this very, very clear gateway that enables me to facilitate that need through the sponsorship program within Alcoholics Anonymous. We have an off-the-shelf altruism package. Isn't that a wonderful thing? So first of all, you show me how to recover from alcoholism, so don't need to drink again, which is great. And then you show me how to find abundance in life. You show me how to bring remarkable things into my life through sponsorship. So sponsorship is this whole giving thing, right? And you know, I used to hear people saying all the time, well, what you get is subject to what you give and all that. I don't know. I didn't understand what that meant. Thought it meant, I don't know, give money to charity or something. But whenever I'm genuinely focused on the needs of somebody else being met, those same needs that I'm helping them to find met, get met within me, but tenfold. That's not why I do it, but that's what happens. Page 100, both you and the new man must walk day to day in the path of spiritual progress. So me, the sponsor, and the new man must walk day to day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. Not like you go to bed tonight and pray to God saying, thank God I didn't take a drink. No, remarkable things. Like, you know, Andy, if I phoned you up tomorrow and said, here, I've got some news, you're not going to believe this, I didn't take a drink today. You'd probably be thinking, well, I think maybe you did take a drink, because that's really not that remarkable. It's not that interesting. But it says here, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. I haven't been doing this for long, but I've been doing this for some years. And I have a list now of the things that I place in God's hands. And I know what that means to me and what it means to you, whatever. But I have a list of things that I place in God's hands. And in each of those, I asked for 10 and got 100. I got remarkable results. And then I have a short list of things that I held on to, and some of them I still hold on to, and they continue to turn to shit. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why that is. I don't know why it is that there's still the pig-headedness within me that still can't see that this is about giving myself entirely to God. Follow the dictates. It dictates defined as authoritative orders. Follow the authoritative orders of a higher power, and you will presently, not in the future, but right now, presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. What I want to bear witness to the new people is, I don't care what your present circumstances are. And I don't mean that in the sense that I don't care and don't have any sympathies, but regardless of what your present circumstances are, if you find God through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I promise you, and I absolutely promise you, take my number and phone me if it turns out I'm wrong, but I promise you that you will have a life beyond your wildest dreams. 5 minutes ago, fantastic. I thought it was finished. I thought it finished by 20 past, so that's good news. So let me tell you about what a life beyond your wildest dreams looks like for me. Well, I spent today with my kids. I've got 4 daughters, and one of them's off at university. Another one, she's a teenager and has got more important things to do. And then the 2 younger ones were with me today. And we've just hung out all day. We've just done the most incredibly trivial things. Whenever I'm finished here, we're going to sit and we're going to carve some pumpkins, in anticipation of Halloween. And you think yeah, it's nice, whatever. But I couldn't do that. Because at lunchtime today, we went into a cafe we like to go to, but in the past that would have been a bar. And then the promises of carving the pumpkins would have been made very, very clear. And then I might have come back and stumbled through it, with, I don't know, a whiskey in my hand and did a half-ass effort at it or something. But I wouldn't have been wholeheartedly committed to it. And then what does that look like what does that small thing look like in terms of my life? Well, I now feel an abundance of love coming back again. Do you know what I mean? This incredible warmth that I have from committing to sort of simple things like that. Whenever I first got sober, I run my own business and I was in business with 2 other guys. And, whenever I first put down the drink and started working through the 12 steps, the damage was already done within the business and it was completely falling apart. We met with the accountants and, they told us that we need to wrap up the business within 45 days. We don't have enough money to pay staff wages and the creditors were all piled up, whatever. And I was looking at it going, yeah, that is how it looks. I don't know. But something within me just thought why don't we just keep going and see how it goes? So I called a meeting with all staff and I explained to them that, I was in a treatment center a short while ago for alcoholism. Nobody was surprised. And, over the last couple of years, my eye's been off the ball. The company's been into decline. Debts have piled up. I can pay your salary at the end of this month, but I have no idea where's coming next month. I'd written references for every one of them and said to them, look, if you got to go, you got to go. And listen, if you want to come back, if we get through this, you'll be welcome back, but do what you got to do. Not one person left. And 6.5 years later, the business is going well. Now, I don't know how the hell that happened, but I know what I did. I give myself over to the power that was offered in here, and I followed the dictates of a higher power. And it came to me through intuitive thought. I asked for intuitive thought or an idea every single day, and it came to me. I took the principles of the 12 traditions that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous and applied them to the business. Very, very simple things like, as the managing director of the business, I stopped making decisions and we had a group conscience amongst everybody because everybody became stakeholders from that day onwards in terms of we were all at risk and the group collectively made decisions. Isn't that a wonderfully beautiful thing? And then the results came from that. My marriage was already over by the time I got sober. So I was then living the single life and raising my children half the time on my own and not really knowing how to do that. But again, all these thoughts, these intuitive thoughts came to me at the time whenever I needed them to happen. I since fell in love with somebody who I met in the Zoom meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in the middle of lockdown. I met her in New Jersey, actually, even though she's from Edinburgh in Scotland and I was on the meeting from Ireland, and we met in New Jersey. And I wasn't tortured with the feelings of I'm not good enough. I wasn't driven by the desire to get her into my home because I was codependent. I was able to look at her as an equal and she at me the same. And we're able to see if the joint force of both of our spiritual paths, when combined, would offer more to help more people. Where was the sum of our equal parts greater? And we were able to find that was a basis upon which we can build a relationship. Now, she's moving over from Edinburgh in a couple of weeks' time, so I guess that's going quite well. So I don't know, what does a life beyond your wildest dreams look like? But there are some examples of what's happening in the outside, in the world of form, as I call it. But a life beyond my wildest dreams for me is that I have peace of mind. And that whenever life gets difficult, because it does, I'm not on my own and I don't feel on my own. And I am absolutely certain that my Creator has entered into my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. And I feel it all day, every day, except for the times when I don't. And then I'm able to bring it straight back into line again. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me, Andy. It's lovely to see you again, and it's good to see the new people. And I'll just say one more time, if you don't have a sponsor, I don't know what the hell's going on there. Just get one. Let us fix that for you, and we'll get it back on track. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brian. Wonderful.